god, I didn't push that!
In an age of games where everything you can think of under the sun exists, indie games are being made by a crew of one person, or 10, or a few dozen, that are now on par with, if not exceeding the standards of AAA games from less than a decade ago. AAA games themselves are either a gross cash grab with half-passable features and a litany of monetization strategies to ensure they squeeze every last dime out of your pocket for access to a game you've already paid $70 for. Sorry, 90, or they're a genuine project of passion and art that makes itself worth not just your dollar, but your time. Games that treat their players like just that. The player, the only person they need to be involved in the game to justify this industry's staggered existence. Now, where does that leave Assassin's Creed Shadows, the 50th something entry into a series that's been going on for 2 decades now? Not a AAA game, but a quadruple A game that you should be comfortable not owning.
Everyone sees how frustrating it is. And for Ubisoft to say, like, hey, you know what, it's time you get more comfortable not owning your games, it's really out of touch.
Listen, there's enough valid reasons to hate Ubisoft and their existence as a company outright to warrant never touching an Assassin's Creed game ever again. They could, and are, going to remaster Black Flag 1 for 1, and it wouldn't give any purchase to me. I barely have time for the games that I do like, that are new, let alone a facelift on a game I've already played from a decade ago. But regardless of everything there is to hate about Ubisoft in general, what is there to hate about Assassin's Creed? So I played the opening of Shadows, at least the first 2 or 3 hours, right here on stream, and, well, it didn't really blow me away. Now, I won't exactly hold this against Shadows because there's a lot of games, RPGs especially, that burn slow at the beginning before it opens up and becomes more interesting. I have this same issue whenever I replay Red Dead, The Witcher, and even Baldur's Gate, which are all great games. And to add on to that is the fact that I'm just not really into the feudal Japan thing. I'm not even really big on anime outside of Attack on Titan and Edge Runners. Japan is just not my bag. Not that I can't enjoy these things, Tsushima was great, obviously, just setting up the context that me and Japan, we ain't that close. So Shadows had a complex problem out the gate. The environment and aesthetic wasn't going to be enough to sell me. Thankfully, I am a fan of the AC games. I started with Revelations back on the 360 because I watched a NerdCube video on it in 2012.
Here, have some money. That'll help pay for her debt.
Then I played Assassin's Creed 2, Black Flag, and skipped over most of the games until... And let me tell you, I loved Odyssey, the backdrop of the Sparta-Athens War and a cult of the cosmos who filled in as Proto-Templars. You played as the grandchild of Leonidas himself and brought Spartan fury across all the Greek Isles. Mix in a heightened sense of the AC mythos featuring Greek gods and monsters as creations of the Isu, a light version of the ship combat from Black Flag, and a simple hack-and-slash combat system that won't enthrall you, but it does the job and isn't so complex as to bear down the rest of the game. A perfect little casual RPG. And with the launch of Shadows, which underwhelmed me in the introduction, where you're introduced to Yasuke and then immediately leave him behind for the next few hours as the game focuses on the actual protagonist, Naoe, in a section that was so clearly re-edited however many times that we have 2 tutorials for combat. 2 of the same tutorial, by the way, not a different one. From the prologue to the first act of the story as Naoe, I kept running into issues that weren't game-breaking, but just annoyed me. Small things, getting stuck on endless dense trees in the forest, the climbing mechanic, as in a lot of AC games, caught up on directions that I just didn't want to go, and an underwhelming combat system that feels like a blend of Elden Ring and Tsushima, but not in a good way. Now, these aren't really bad on their own, but in the context of Shadows, it's kind of infuriating. Why is the game an open-world RPG if I can't explore the world? It's open world, but only if you stick to the roads. Now, a lot of open world games encourage this all the same, but at least traveling the wilds isn't always a headache. In Shadows, it felt like it was. Climbing has felt kind of clunky in all the AC games, rather than being freeform in a game like Mirror's Edge, which had great parkour over a decade ago. Almost 2 decades ago. The games insist on forcing you to climb things from very specific angles at very specific places just to go up. People say that the climbing from Odyssey was cheap because you could climb basically anything, but that at least stopped you from getting caught up on the random cabbage cart when trying to run away from the bad guys. And the combat. It's complex, but it's not. It's a parry and attack system, but for me, the parries feel weak and aren't super impactful on combat, as adverse to just spamming the light attack. In a game where combat is split between 2 different characters that fight differently, you'd think they would make an effort to make each feel more unique or to play in adverse ways. Now yes, Naoe is better at stealth and Yasuke rams through every enemy, but the fighting is the same each way. Just Yasuke happens to hit harder and is more generous with his parry timings. They don't really play differently, they are just better or worse at different things, which, I don't know. I wish each character had more identity aside from the aesthetic flair. In the hours I've played, I just don't get that vibe. But after being slapped by that introduction, I booted up Odyssey for the first time since 2020, and well, I didn't find myself in the same boat. I wasn't fighting the terrain, I wasn't struggling to keep up with the world. Granted, like from before, I'm much more into ancient Greece than I am Japan, but regardless of the groundwork, everything about the game just kind of felt cleaner. And after I lost a few hours to Odyssey, I booted up Tsushima to see if I'd feel the divide further, and it finally clicked for me. My issue with Shadows isn't Shadows itself, it's the context of what inspired it. Assassin's Creed Shadows works to imitate a lot of other games while also trying to sell a faithful and authentic world of historical Japan. Now, I'm no historian, definitely not a Japanese historian. From what I've seen of people commentating online, normal people, not 60-year-old porn producers, it does a fairly decent job of portraying Japan in a faithful way, as faithful as Assassin's Creed has always been with all their games at least. But that faithful authenticity is one of the game's artistic weak points for me. Looking over at Ghost of Tsushima, which portrays a very similar landscape and era of Japan, it just looks better. It looks like a moving painting, a piece of art living right before your eyes. It's not necessarily authentic. Real life doesn't look like this. The higher fidelity and textures, the heightened lighting of Shadows is more authentic to the real world, but it looks worse. In a way, it reminded me of The Witcher. Witcher 3 is a decade old, and it definitely looks and feels like it. But it's still gorgeous, because while it might not have the fidelity of a new-gen game like Shadows, the artistic stylings and the design of how the world is portrayed allows it to stand on its own even so long later, and makes it pop like an oil painting. Even though the game is, on a technical level, inferior to Shadows. So when I see everyone commenting stupid shit along the lines of Shadows looks like a PS2 game, I kind of see where it comes from, being that games from a generation ago still hold up in their artistic portrayals than Shadows when it just launched. The issue with that authenticity over style makes Shadows instantly dated, where it took a decade for The Witcher to feel the same. Because as soon as another game comes along and it looks better from a technical perspective, or even comparing it to games now that look the same and have a strong artistic hand guiding the direction of the world, it'll blow Shadows out of the water. Like, look at God of War Ragnarok by comparison. Hell, look at one of the last games. Odyssey has just such a more vibrant use of the sun and kind of the ambient radiance you get from all of the different buildings and the nature around you that I just didn't feel in Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows is authentic to the history it portrays and the world it's trying to mimic, but that makes it so much more boring. At least to me. If you're big on living out history in a realistic way, you'd probably love it. But I prefer the giant, inaccurate statues of the gods in Odyssey that put you in the mindset of the world and the people. The Animus is interpreting memories from DNA, and in the world of Odyssey, the gods are always watching, always looming over the horizon. As was common for the cultures of the time, their gods aren't just myth, but history to the people who live in the lands. And the design of the world reflects that. It's not as authentic to the reality of ancient Greece, but it heightens the experience of reliving it. In the same way, Leonardo da Vinci never built a working tank, but it's fun. It adds to the experience of the game and the player. In the same vein as the intense glare of the sun and torches in Tsushima, the sun never looks like this, nor does it make the world look like this, at least not as commonly as you'd see it in Ghost. But for that game, it looks better, so that's the direction the art went in. Hello, it's me in person again. And blue. I just wanted to say this part with my face because it's kind of relevant to the discussion I'm going to pose in this part of the video, but there's a lot of talk going around about the music in Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I think plays into my perspective on the, authenticity factor I get from Shadows as a game. That thing being that Shadows kind of tokenizes Yasuke as a black character with its music. Obviously, with the melanin I do not have, I can't speak for an entire community on how the treatment of the music in relation to Yasuke and Shadows is perceived, but I do know, based on a few things I've heard from a lot of other black creators in the space, probably listed somewhere here on screen, that it does kind of feel odd that, Assassin's Creed has used more contemporary music stylings in their music before. Way back in Assassin's Creed 2, there's an electric guitar in the rooftop track. I forget the full name of it. Obviously, that's not traditional Italian music, but it fits. It's used to enhance the experience of the game. But at the same time, a lot of the contemporary music stylings in a lot of the games still fit into the thematic elements of the characters and or the setting. I've listened to the soundtracks for Black Flag, Unity, Syndicate, Odyssey, Valhalla dozens of times over, and anytime they incorporate those more modernized instruments, it still fits within the themes and the kind of general sense and aesthetic of the sound to any given game. So from that perspective, I do think it's kind of odd, especially that it's African-American inspired music when Yasuke is Afro-Portuguese. Obviously he's not from Portugal, but that's where he comes from. He's speaking Portuguese in the game. And I feel like it would have, if you wanted to represent Yasuke with a unique musical identity, separate from all of the more Japan-focused music, obviously, I feel doing something that is more traditional Portuguese or even more traditional African would just be a better fit for it. Or if the whole point is that he is accepted by people like Oda Nobunaga as a member of Japanese society, that making his sound more in tune with the sounds of Japan would also still fit. But the fact that it sounds like it could be a modern 808 it does kind of feel out of place. It sounds like somebody who's making music for it and is it's gotta be that kind of music, instead of pulling from the actual place where Yasuke comes from, which would be, somewhere between actual Africa and Portugal, not anything to do with the Americas. But that's about it for the music. I don't know. I don't want to say too much, because I don't want it to sound like I'm getting offended on behalf of somebody else. But I think it's just odd, and at the worst, it feels lazy. It's like they went, oh, black guy, hip hop. Come on, it that sense of authenticity that is within the rest of Shadows, and the soundtrack is banging. The fucking music that plays when you see the Onro, the Templars for the first time. Is fucking awesome. It's amazing. And then it feels like the music specifically for Yasuke is kind of shoehorned in, and it just feels odd to me. And maybe you let me know what you think down below. But to me, it seems off. But that's about it for this, for the music side of things. Back to the regular, go back. The biggest problem I have with Shadows is the context of how it exists. If I never played Odyssey and had gotten used to helpful quality of life game mechanics that have been arbitrarily stripped from the experience to encourage you to buy loot for a single player game? If I had never played Tsushima that does a better job of portraying historical Japan in a more aesthetically crafted way, while also featuring gameplay that blends the shinobi-esque stealth and samurai-type combat in one character, rather than having it split between two characters that are not as impressive as Jin to play as. If this game wasn't made by Ubisoft, one of the greediest, scummiest studios out there, Shadows would be a 7 out of 10 at worst. But those things do exist. They exist and they're better. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but imitation for the sake of imitating greatness without the same passion taken into account is just disrespectful. Have you played Shadows? Are you an Assassin's Creed fan to begin with? Let me know what you think of the game down below. I might be setting some time aside to give it another chance, but between booting up Odyssey and Tsushima, I feel like this is a game that just doesn't have any purpose. It reminds me a lot of Spider-Man 2. If you liked the first a lot, it's just more of that, but the sequel didn't do anything to make me feel like it was necessary outside of being a continuation for fans, which yes, that's what a sequel should be, but that doesn't mean it should feel like a glorified expansion. As always, big thank you to all the members and patrons who help me continue to make new videos. If you're unaware, you can become a member for just $1 a month and get early access to member-exclusive polls to vote for which videos come first, get videos early, and even more behind the scenes. And go to the links below to grab some of my charity merch. 100% of the proceeds I make from this gets donated directly to my local food bank. As always, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.